Hey, Shayla.
Hey, Mark.
What are we going to talk about today?
The market.
Yeah, June stats came out for 2025.
Here we are. We're still in 2025. Sizzling hot or absolutely not? We're talking market stats here. Corcoran dwellings. All right, let's do a positive spin. I know we talk about sellers needing to lower the price, and that's going to be part of the discussion. But we're also going to give some creative, positive things that you can do to facilitate a sale. I mean, we can't all have cash sales, right? Although we love that.
We do.
But
we do.
tell us what you got.
Well, I mean, listen, it's a broken record, but the reality is prices have fallen. Mm-hmm. No one wants to admit it. No one wants to acknowledge it. You lower the price or you keep the house. Now, there are other things you can do, yes. You can, let's say it's vacant. You want to stage it. You can stage it, spend some money and stage it. If the house is in disrepair, paint it. You're getting a new listing. What is the first thing you did?
We had it painted, and so they removed all the furniture. We did a big price drop in addition to that, and then we did virtual staging.
Yeah.
So the furniture's out, so it's virtual.
It's not always about price, but a lot of times it is.
It's a big part of it. It's price and first impression photos.
Yeah. The other thing, too, I see every now and then is an agent that will take photos from their cell phone. Everyone's looking online. Everyone is on real estate websites looking at properties, and they're doing it by photo. Photo is the biggest. It's the best marketing you can do. One of the best things you can do. And you hire a photographer. Hire a professional photographer. It'll help you 100%.
I think that's just low line fruit that you should just do.
That should be a standard.
It should be a standard.
But it's not. There are listings out there, multi-million-dollar listings, where people took the photos with their cell phone because they want to save $200 or whatever it costs for a photographer.
You'll end up making more because it'll show better, it'll sell quicker. Meanwhile, sellers paying HOA fees, taxes, maintenance, all the insurance. So really, is it saving? No, you're actually kicking yourself in the foot for that. No. Should we start with inventory? Should we start with ideas, other things that sellers can consider offering the buyer or to facilitate?
Let's talk about what sellers can offer buyers. But sellers can buy down the rate if they want to buy down the mortgage rate, because if the interest rate's too high or there's affordability issues, the seller can throw some money in and buy down the buyer's rate.
I had one. Yeah. I had one that closed. Mm-hmm. It was on Cortez, a condo on Palma Bay, the one that sold recently on Catalina. And we got full price, but the seller paid $24,000 in credits to the buyer at closing for closing costs and prepaids. And the bulk of that, $17,000 of the $24,000, was for the buyer to buy the rate down to facilitate the sale. My seller got the net that he wanted. The buyer got the rate that he wanted in order for them to feel like this is affordable, and it made it happen. And as long as you're communicating that, like the communication between agents and what's relayed to the seller versus buyer is so important.
What's important in that scenario is the property appraises, because you could raise the property price and buy the rate down, but it still has to appraise. That's where you can run into some trouble.
That's a really critical thing. Yeah. What else? VA?
Well, there's VA. There's, there are, I don't want to get in. It's funny. We're on a group text, and we're one of the agents that asked, why aren't we seeing more creative financing stuff? Because there are things, I don't want to get too technical here, but you can get into called a wraparound mortgage.
Well, explain what that is, because I don't know that I
don't want to. I could. All right, I'll do it real fast.
Look it up on Google.
Now, I mean, essentially, you can. A new mortgage wraps around the existing mortgage. It's a little risky because every mortgage has a due on sale clause, and in this scenario, you're keeping the existing mortgage with the property, and you're just say you wrap around with another mortgage.
Does the seller have liability in that?
Yeah, because they're still on the hook for that first mortgage.
And that's why they probably
it's a little it's a little risky. I mean, I because they have the due on sale clause. What the VAs are assumable.
Coming back.
They're assumable, aren't they? Yeah.
True. Yeah. But there's some risk for the seller if they want to go and use their VA right away.
They can't use the VA again.
Yeah, so there's nuances with all of it.
Yeah.
But speaking of the VA, we're seeing more VA. I have 2 of my transactions pending right now are VA.
Yeah.
One's a brand new construction that's closing next month. That was just ready, built, and that's a whole other thing with new construction, what they're offering. And the other is just a regular transaction. And sellers, if they're not educated enough about it, they feel like if I don't know enough about it, I'm scared, and I think there's more risk, and then they don't want to do it. But we have to be more creative now because there's a lot of inventory.
It's and I think you just said there's a lot of inventory, but year over year, definitely we have a lot more inventory. But I'm starting to see signs in the market where sellers are saying, I'm not getting the price I want, so I'm going to take it off. And I had a conversation yesterday with someone that has a place on Anna Maria Island, and he's like, well, I'm just not going to list it then. So now we're getting to the point where are we going to start seeing a bunch of listings come off the market because they don't want to sell? They don't want to sell at these prices. They want us to maybe still sell, but they're not desperate to sell. So they don't want to sell at these prices, and they think if they wait, they may actually sell for a higher price down the road, and they might. Who knows? But we're starting to see more and more sellers do that. They just take their property off the market, which I think is healthy for the market.
I do, because to that exact point, we're at 6.3 months of inventory for Sarasota County single-family homes, which is the stronger indication of where the market is versus condos, as we talk about every month, which is actually down from January, because they pulled January and it was 6.4. It's down by 1/10 of a point or whatever. It's not much, but at least it's down a little versus up.
Yeah,
so it's really equilibrium market.
Fairly balanced to single family. They say 4 to 6 months is a balanced market. And if everyone is saying the market's horrible, but the reality is we actually have sold a few more single family homes in Sarasota County this year than last year. Yeah. Not statistically a lot more, but we've actually sold a tad bit more. So, but most realtors are surprised when I tell them that.
Right.
Condos have fallen off the cliff. Right. But so.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess some people, as a seller, you're competing with new construction and the incentives that they're offering, and it's hard to compete with a brand new shiny penny house, right? Like no dirt, it's your dirt and all that. So the one that I have that's under contract with the builder, they offered a 4.8% 30-year fix. Like, that's why offering a buy down or a credit so that the buyer can buy down the rate will give them that, okay, I can afford this. I can afford this. It's in the location I want. Maybe I don't want to be in Lakewood Ranch, or maybe I don't want to be so far east. And maybe I didn't know that was an option. And opening up the house to, if you have a listing, or if you're a seller, opening it up to VA, FHA, and just being creative. I mean, and seller financing is becoming more and more of a question. We've got Andrew, who's on the show often. He's got a property that's got some damage, and that seller is open to seller financing. And frankly, with that kind of damage, are they able to even get a loan? Like with the drywall pulled up and everything?
I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
So
if you're a seller and you don't have debt, you have no mortgage, you can do seller financing and get a decent, whatever you negotiate in terms of an interest rate. But in a situation like that, just be careful. Just get some equity. Make sure that they put enough down payment.
I've only done 2 seller finance deals in my entire career since 2002, and they were short term. They were less than a year notes the seller took out, and they were both paid well in advance of the 1 year. One was paid in like 3 months, one was paid within 6 months. So we're getting these crazy offers just from, like, I don't know if it's spam or what, but they're asking for like crazy 10-year notes with the seller.
Investors.
That is just not, I don't know. Is anybody doing this?
I haven't heard of anything.
I don't know.
We get them. We get a lot of subject to offers where it's subject to the existing mortgage. But I haven't heard anyone actually doing it. So, in terms of the market, I think that, the single family home is fairly balanced right now in terms of sellers and buyers. Condos, different story. I say this in every market. Price is very crucial.
It is.
In a transition market like this, where prices have fallen, it makes sellers very uncomfortable, and realtors too. and they don't know what to do. And it's hard to convince someone to lower your price a lot less than what it used to be. We all had a lot more equity in 2000 or 2022, but now it's changed. To get a buyer off the fence, they're not going to pay those prices.
And I mean, listen, I don't mind being the second or the third agent on a listing, because normally the seller's worn down. Now they're like, okay, I probably told you a price initially that is why you didn't list with me, and then it sat on the market for 6 months, 9 months, a year, and sometimes they call me back, sometimes they don't, because they probably have some pride in some cases. But I do have one listing that was much higher, is $150,000 higher, and I took it over, and we just put it on the market, so we'll see. But it's price positioned really well now at this moment.
Yeah.
See, and that's the other thing too that we talk about. We could list it now and it be priced very well, but it takes one neighbor to undercut the whole neighborhood, and that's now the comparable.
Those are your new comps. If you have if I'm making these numbers up, but if it's $1 million home and then nothing is selling, but then you get 3 similar sales at 900,000, that's the new value, and it stinks, but we're all dealing with it.
And he would know. He was just on the news. You were on Tampa Bay. What is it? Tampa Bay 10?
CBS 10. CBS 10.
I'm sitting with
oh yeah, very very important.
A star. So what do they ask you about on?
They asked me about market stats. They asked me about the market,
and you had sent in the group text too. You sent some interesting stuff about expireds too. So touch on both.
Yeah, so yesterday, just out of curiosity, I went through the first 6 months of 2024 and the first 6 months of 2025, compared expireds, the number of properties that expired, canceled, just taken off the market, substantially more this year than last year.
Almost double.
Now we also probably had more listings, but it was, I don't remember the raw numbers, but it was percentage wise, it was a substantial difference.
It was almost double.
It was almost double, and that leads me to believe. Now, some of those obviously been relisted,
right? But
what leads me to believe is that a lot of sellers are just saying, "I'm taking it off, and I'm going to keep the property because I'm not getting that price I thought I was going to get," which is a good thing for the overall market, because we get some of these listings off the market that are never going to sell.
Okay, but. So if they're of the mentality, some of these are like, well, I'm just going to hold on for at infinitum, like there's no date. But if you're saying I'm going to wait until next year, there's some inherent risk in that, because listen, the trajectory is that prices are softening. So if it's worth 900 now, I mean, I've looked at properties that I was going to list earlier in the year, like January was X, and I'm seeing them go down. So there is risk in that, because I don't know what next year that this time is going to be. It could be down. It could be down by another 100,000.
I'll tell you a story. Back in the crash, when 2003 to 2005, we had a very healthy, crazy speculative market. 2006 it stopped, and then there was a crash in 2008, 2009. I was telling sellers in that 07, 08, 09 period, your prices have fallen. Get ahead of the drop. Get ahead of the drop, because they didn't like this price, but if they waited 3 years, they sold it for way down here. I don't think that's going to happen here, because we don't have a situation where a lot of people are turning their houses back into the bank with all these foreclosures.
There's a lot of equity.
A lot of these people that bought through the COVID refugee market paid cash, or they have a ton of equity. So they're not in a financial situation. If they have a life change and they want to sell that, that's one thing. But generally, they're not under a lot of financial stress. A lot of them.
But like, there's some properties I sold this year or even last year that are like, I should have just done it sooner. I should have done it when, Shayla, you told me it was worth X, and now it's worth substantially less. I mean, like, listen, I'm not Nostradamus over here, so I don't know, and neither do you. But we go by patterns, and like, there's something called intuition too, because when you've been doing this so long, you have like this churning thing that happens with your intuition, because you've been doing this so long, and you feel things before they start to come, because you do this inside out, day in and day out. And I mean,
we have that churning feel inside.
Yeah, that churning intuition. It's called intuition, Mark. If you don't have it,
but but you're not Nostradamus, though.
I'm not. No. But like,
in a market where prices are falling, you wish you had sold yesterday, or the week before, or the month before.
Right.
That's the reality of it. It's just there's a lot of unknowns. Like we got hit by a hurricane. So out on Siesta Key, for example, there's pre-market prices and pre-storm prices and
Right.
post-storm prices. The rest of the market maybe it wasn't affected as much, but damaged properties, people are like, well, what's this worth? There are no comps. We don't know until
That's
you stick
true.
it out in the market, and then you lower the price enough to get someone to buy it, and then that's the market. But so in a transition market where prices are falling, sometimes we just don't know what things are worth, and that's tough.
And I just closed on the Whitney Beach Bayside property, and it was great. It was a challenge though at the very end, because as you know, if you go in the playlist, you can see that I've got 2 videos there. One is titled Restoration Liens, and the other was the Whitney Beach tour. And at the very last minute, the HOA didn't want to sign off on an affidavit talking about the HOA, stating that the HOA will have enough funds to cover any of these future liens assessments. And they refused to sign off on it. And it was like this last minute, but that's why we sold it at such a discount, because of that possibility. Like, they got a huge break on it at $475 on the bay. Okay. With a great view.
I want to bring up one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
You had a listing recently that had been on the market for, I think, 150 days, and all of a sudden you get 2 offers.
Yeah, my Anna Maria condo.
So, and you had another similar situation like that too. Mm-hmm. So that can happen. It doesn't have to sell the first week when you list it. You want it to sell the first week because that's when you have the most leverage. But every now and then you see sometimes where your house condo's been on the market for 3, 4, 5 months. It's very quiet. All of a sudden 2 people want it at the same time.
Yeah.
Does happen. You can't rely on it. But it is a possibility. So if you are on the market, if you're for sale and you've been on for 3, 4 months, I wouldn't give up hope yet. Obviously, it's better if you had sold it 3 months ago. But the reality is, did you close that one yet?
We're working on it.
Okay, so it's pending.
But I have not only the contract, a fully executed backup, and they're both cash.
Out of the blue after 150 days on the market.
No, it's actually 228 days.
228 days on the market.
And to contrast that, I have one pending right now that was only in the market 23 days. So it's like, if you're a buyer, I always tell my buyers, no matter what market it is, assume that someone's looking at it, and if you like it, don't wait, pull the trigger. Yeah. In most cases.
And the one that you just sold in Three Oaks had 2 buyers, right?
That's the one I have under contract. Yes, I have a contract. I have 3 buyers agents on the list that said, please, if this is falling through or whatever, please call us, because we ripped the Band-Aid off. We didn't wait for the neighbors to rip the Band-Aid off and lower the price. We just did it within the first 2 weeks, and then boom, it's because they priced it well. Yeah, they listened to me, and they were listening to the market, and they were sensing the showings or lack of showings, the feedback, the communication. They're motivated too, so that obviously helps.
So in a market that, and I'm not saying we're bottoming out, but in a market where it's transitioning and prices are falling, you start to see a lot more news reports. And I was on the news last night.
You were. Yeah. You're in the news.
And there's been a lot more news about the prices falling. And once that people start hearing it, because we pay attention to the real estate market because we do it every day.
But we say it first, they're like,
Yeah. But we're in this every day, so we get it. Yeah. But the general person doesn't really pay attention to the real estate. And so they don't know. But now that the news, the mainstream media is starting to post, agents are starting to post a lot more about it. More and more sellers are going to get it and say, hey, okay, it's not worth what I thought it was. And let's price it right, or I'll just keep it.
Be the first to rip the Band-Aid off. Totally switching gears, and we can end on this note. It's kind of not a positive, but on the showing agreements and the buyer broker agreements, I had a situation that came up, and I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but he was actually interested in one of my listings, and I won't say which one. There's a lot of action on it. And I sent him the showing agreement with the property that he wanted to see. And I wrote my standard commission in there. But in the terms, I wrote that the seller is paying all commissions at closing. The buyer's not responsible. Well, he crossed it off, my commission, and wrote 0%. And I said I didn't agree to that. And that's not what my seller agreed to. And so we'll have to change it back if you'd like to see the property, because these showing agreements and these buyer broker agreements are required. It's throughout the whole country. It's not just a Shayla thing. It's not a Corcoran thing. It's not a Cole Banker thing. It's throughout the country. You have to have this before you tour a scheduled tour with a realtor. And so we did not look at it, and he missed out because we went under contract. So, I told him, I said, call an attorney, call other realtors, other brokers, call realtors in other states, another whatever. And he was just adamant that he's like, well, why are you getting paid X just to open the door? Which it's never just that. It doesn't matter. My seller agreed to this, and you crossed off around zero. I'm like, it's not how I work, and it has to be this is what I charge. And like I said, I put in there that the seller is paying it. And it was such an issue with him. I called his lender and I said, do you want to talk to him? And it just didn't work out.
I mean, there's who knows the real story here. I think it's maybe a miscommunication, or the fact that he feels like he's paying your commission through the higher sales price. And, that we can get into a debate about all that stuff.
It was a frustrating situation that
it's unfortunate.
Other people are seeing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it didn't need to happen. They could have seen the house and bought it and then worried about commissions.
I mean,
later.
The frustrating thing for me was I offered late at night too. I was like, you're welcome to call me. Instead of like going back and forth, a lot of things can be, negated or solved on the phone, over the phone. Instead of the texting and the emailing thing, a lot of things get lost in translation. I offered that to him. He just didn't want to hear it. I don't know. So, you know what? We're not meant to work with every single person, maybe.
But you sold the property, right?
Well, it's under contract.
It's under contract.
He missed out.
Yeah. So.
But live and learn. So it's all good. What do you want to say at the end here?
I'm feeling a little more optimistic about the market, because I'm starting to see more and more people acknowledge the fact that the prices have fallen, and more sellers saying, you know what, let's just take it off, or let's price it right, or can I improve the property to the point where it does attract a buyer? So it's there was months and months or a year ago, however, we were kind of, where are we? We weren't quite sure. Now it's getting a little bit more clear. It's getting a little bit more clear in terms of valuations.
I do think that the end of the year, the second half is going to be far better. I feel like for my stuff,
You've been super busy.
Yeah, which is, I was feeling a little slow at the first half. So.
You can't judge a market by one agent. Yeah, she's been very busy, and some of the other agents have been very busy. But
we're all doing the thing.
We're finding our way. So if you're a buyer out there, hang
in there.
Yeah, you got plenty to choose from. You have a lot to choose from, and then sellers. It's like any market. Price it right, improve the property, or I guess don't sell it.
Communicate well with your agent. I think that's a lot of it, and your lender and whoever you're dealing with. So we're on your side. This is a team collaboration. This is a relationship business. I would rather have the relationship and lose the deal. I don't want to lose the deal, but I'd rather keep the relationship and do a deal later if that's what's best for the client. Than force it if the timing's not right. So there's a time and place for everything, and closings happen every day. So
that's right.
It's all good. So,
all
right. Well, thank you for watching, guys. Subscribing, commenting, sharing. If you're new to the channel, thank you. I'd love it for you to subscribe and send us a note. We'd be happy to get on a call with you and consult with you if you're purchasing or selling.